The hand that pulled me through the threshold was not just warm, it was commanding. Every finger seemed to know the rhythm of my pulse, pressing into me as though it had written that beat long before I was born. When it let go, I fell hard onto stone, the impact jolting through my knees and chest. The surface was rough, ancient, cut with grooves that shimmered faintly as if they once held fire. The air scraped down my throat, metallic and thick, burning like smoke. I realized with a sick twist that I hadn't stepped into this place by choice. I had been taken. The chamber surrounding me stretched endlessly, its height lost in shadow, its vastness echoing with silence that felt older than sound itself. Black columns rose around me, each one scarred with symbols that looked eerily like the rules I had carried for so long. Yet none were complete. Each carving broke off halfway, as if the author had abandoned the sentence before the final word. Their faint red glow pulsed like dying embers, a reminder that these laws had once been alive and now lay suffocating in their own decay. My hand brushed against one groove and came away coated in dust, the stone brittle as though it had been burning for centuries. This was no holy place. It was a draft of something that had never been finished. I turned quickly, desperate for the door, for the path that had dragged me here. But the wall behind me was seamless. No glow, no frame, no trace that a doorway had ever existed. Door 0 had shut itself as though it had never been real, sealing me inside a world that already seemed intent on erasing me. For a moment I stood frozen, my chest rising and falling too fast. And then the silence broke. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, not echoing but sinking. Each strike of a heel seemed to bend the chamber's breath toward it, drawing the red glow of the unfinished rules into rhythm with its approach. I felt it before I saw it, a pressure that made the columns bow and my stomach twist. When the figure emerged, my body locked in place. It was me, but perfected. His skin was whole, unscarred, his presence steady like a line of scripture written with absolute certainty. His face was my face, yet refined, cut from stone, carrying none of my tremors or doubts. His eyes, dark, fathomless, fixed on me with the weight of something that had never once questioned its right to exist. In him I saw not survival, but sovereignty, as if he were the mold I had been poured from and then shattered against the ground. My voice cracked before it could carry. "Who are you?" He studied me the way a surgeon might examine tissue on a tray, curious but detached, and when he spoke, his voice was calm yet impossible to resist. "I am what you were supposed to be, the first draft, the one untouched. I am Michael Brennan." The sound of my name from his mouth hollowed me out. My knees threatened to buckle. "No," I stammered. "I'm Michael Brennan. His mouth curved in a smile almost kind, and that was what made it terrifying. "You are a shadow stitched from what was cut away. Every draft is burned to keep me hidden, every fragment shaped into something temporary. You are not me. You are here because I allowed it." With each step closer, the carvings in the columns flared brighter, bleeding crimson through their fractures as if the chamber itself bent to his claim. My chest heaved with anger I wasn't sure I believed in. I've survived. The motel. The shadows. The engine. I fought my way here. That makes me real. His eyes pierced through the protest, steady as stone. Survival is not reality. Origin is reality, and you are only a courier. Every draft carries pieces of me, fragments of memory carved away so the rewrite can keep me intact. You have carried more than most, and that is why you were permitted to reach this place. The words coiled around my ribs like chains, because deep inside, I felt the truth in them. Every moment when my memories had twisted, every time my own name had faltered on my tongue, it was because they had never belonged to me. They had been stolen, smuggled from him into me. And then his voice sank low, sliding beneath my skin like a blade. "You've hidden something well. A memory I once buried, one I meant never to surface. It beats inside you even now, though you don't know it. That fragment belongs to me." A chill clawed through my chest, and for a flash I saw it. A white room, men in black coats, whispers sharp as scalpels, and a voice declaring, "Subject MB resists memory suppression." The vision collapsed before I could grasp it, leaving dread curdled in its wake. My lips trembled. "If it's yours, why haven't you taken it already?" For the first time, his composure cracked. His jaw tightened, eyes flickering with something close to heat. "Because you've carried it longer than you should have, and that makes it dangerous." The chamber vibrated with his words. The carvings on the columns lit up like veins, crimson bleeding across stone. The air grew heavy, pressing me backward, and when he extended his hand, I knew it wasn't an invitation, it was a summons. That was when the hiss came, sharp and metallic from the darkness above. Sparks fell like embers. A scraping followed, claws dragging cables across stone, and out of a fracture in the wall, something crawled. Pixel. But not the creature I had known. His form was a grotesque lattice of fur and wire, tail snapping with steel, golden eyes flickering like twin projectors replaying every failure I'd ever endured. Each blink showed me burning, screaming, betraying, frame by frame, until I could hardly look. He limped forward, shoulders jerking, and then lowered himself. His head dipped, wires coiled like snakes but stilled. Pixel, my warden, my last companion, bowed. The original gave him only a passing glance before fixing his gaze back on me. His eyes darkened, his voice sharpened into a verdict. "You've carried something I need returned." And in that moment I understood. This was not a meeting. It was a judgment, and I was already guilty. The silence that followed his words was not silence at all. It was a pressure, heavy as a tombstone laid across my chest. His hand remained outstretched, fingers steady, as though the entire cathedral had been constructed just for this moment of surrender. I tried to breathe, but each breath seemed to thicken the air rather than clear it. My pulse hammered against my ears in a frantic staccato while he stood unmoving, certain, waiting. He didn't need to hurry. He already believed time belonged to him. "I'm not your shadow," I rasped at last, my voice unsteady but sharper than I expected. "I've lived. I've fought. I've made choices that were mine. That means I am real." My declaration cracked through the chamber, but instead of echoing, it was swallowed whole, as though the room itself rejected my defiance. The red glow in the grooves of the columns pulsed brighter, not in agreement with me, but in resonance with him, and the faint vibration beneath my feet deepened like a chuckle from stone. I realized with a chill that I wasn't just arguing with him. I was arguing with the very structure of this place. He didn't even blink. His voice cut clean, soft as a knife sliding between ribs. "What you call life was only resistance against erasure. What you call choice was the margin a draft is given before disposal. Do you wonder why your memories dissolve, why nights blur into each other, why even your cat turned to smoke and rules shifted like shadows? None of that belonged to you. You were scaffolding, not the house." My throat clenched. Rage rose, not clean but tangled with fear, and I took a step forward that felt more like falling. If I'm scaffolding, then why haven't I collapsed? Why did I endure when the others didn't? Why did I make it through doors and engines and shadows if I was never meant to last? The words rang thin, brittle glass flung against a wall, but for the first time his gaze narrowed, not broken, but recalculating, as though I had stumbled onto the single question he did not enjoy hearing aloud. Above me, Pixel stirred. His golden eyes flickered like broken film projectors, and suddenly the chamber was filled with images I had tried to forget. The first night in the motel lobby, the girl in the white dress, the burning of mirrors, my double screaming as fire ate his skin. Every failure, every defiance, every sin was displayed in frames of sickly light across the walls. Pixel's cables rattled as though amplifying each moment, turning my life into a courtroom record. He was not only a warden, he was the witness. The original watched the projections, expression unchanged, and then fixed his eyes back on me. His words dropped like iron weights. "You endured because you carried what others did not." A fragment, buried deep, sealed in error, left inside you. It was supposed to be erased, but it clung. That fragment kept you alive. Not your strength, not your will. The fragment. It is mine. The air shifted with his declaration. The grooves on the stone lit up like veins carrying fire, crimson lines webbing outward until the floor glowed faintly beneath my boots. The vibration grew heavier, like a heart beating under the cathedral, pulsing in time with his words. My own heart struggled to match it, stuttering, losing rhythm. I shook my head hard, desperate to stay standing. If it's inside me, then maybe it's not yours anymore. Maybe it became mine when you lost it. For a fleeting second, I thought I had said something that might wound him. His jaw tightened, his shadow stretched wider across the floor. But then his eyes darkened, and he leaned closer until his voice slid across the skin of my ear like cold breath. Nothing is ever yours. You are a page, Michael. Pages don't own the ink. They carry it until the book is bound, and then they are discarded. My stomach twisted, a nauseous churn that nearly doubled me over. Memories flickered at the edges of my mind like sparks in dry grass. A white chamber, sterile light, the stench of chemicals, black-coated figures whispering, their pens scratching. A voice I couldn't place saying, "Subject MB resists suppression." Memory not fully erased. The image cut out before I could grab it, leaving me shaking with dread. I looked up at him, desperate, angry, terrified, all at once. If you need it so badly, then why haven't you already taken it? For the first time, the smooth mask of calm cracked. Not fully, but enough. His eyes flared with a heat like embers fanned too close to flame. His jaw tightened, and the words that followed were no longer measured. They struck. Because you've carried it longer than you should have. It has rooted itself in you, and that makes it dangerous to extract. Dangerous, but not impossible. The cathedral rumbled. Dust sifted down from the arches above. The grooves on the columns burned brighter, a living pulse of molten red. The whole place leaned toward him, straining to obey. Pixel hissed, his projections warping, replaying the same moment of me killing my double over and over, as though to remind me that I had already destroyed myself once. The original's hand did not waver. His voice struck the chamber like the toll of a massive bell, final and unarguable. Give it back to me. The memory, the seed, the truth you don't even know you hold. Hand it over, or be erased with it. And as his words settled, the vision inside me surged again without my permission. I saw a table, leather straps biting my wrists, my mouth pried open by steel, needles gleaming under light, a whisper in my own voice, though weaker, repeating, "Remember, Michael, remember." The vision burned and vanished, leaving a taste of metal in my mouth. I staggered back, clutching my head, breath ragged. He had seen it too. I knew he had. His smile sharpened, not cruel, but certain, as though the verdict had already been written and I was only now reading it. The moment the vision of straps and needles dissolved, the floor beneath me split with a sound like cracking bone. The columns shook, dust cascading in dull red showers, and I staggered back, barely able to stay upright. The original did not move. He didn't need to. With a single shift of his gaze, the chamber obeyed him. The grooves carved into stone spread outward, stretching into patterns that resembled seats, altars, rows of silent observers. The empty cathedral rearranged itself into a courtroom without faces, only shadows occupying the benches. Each shadow leaned forward as if eager for the spectacle, but none breathed, none stirred. It was judgment sculpted into architecture. I tried to speak, to protest, but the words clotted in my throat. The shadows filled the silence with whispers, dozens, then hundreds of voices bleeding into one another until it became a tide of accusation. They called my name, Michael, Michael, Michael. Yet each voice was different, fractured by accents, tones, ages, all me but not me. These were the discarded versions, the erased fragments, ghosts of the drafts burned so he could remain whole. Their presence hit harder than any strike could. Every syllable burrowed into me, accusing me of surviving where they had failed. Pixel's golden eyes flared. The projections resumed, not on walls this time, but hovering midair, like glass panes conjured from memory. Each pane held an image of me, or some version of me, dying. One was strangled by shadow hands, another burned alive, another stood frozen until his face collapsed into ash. They flickered like obscene home videos, and my stomach churned until bile stung the back of my throat. Pixel's cables quivered with delightless precision, recording, amplifying, making sure nothing was missed. I turned toward the original, desperate, furious. "This isn't truth. This is theater. You're forcing them against me." My voice cracked with desperation, but he answered without raising his tone. "This is truth made visible. They are what you step over every time you call yourself Michael Brennan. Do you wonder why survival feels hollow? It is because you stand on the corpses of yourself." His words fell like stone tablets, sealing themselves into my bones. The shadows surged closer, their forms still indistinct, but their hands sharper, their whispers heavier. They circled me in a tightening ring, a jury that wanted blood rather than verdict. I felt their touch, cold yet burning, as they brushed my shoulders, my chest, my throat. Every contact splintered me, like pieces of my skin were flaking away. My heart raced, but my strength drained as though they were siphoning it with every accusation. One of them stepped forward, sharper than the rest. His outline filled, his face taking shape until I saw it clearly. My own face, but pale, blistered from the fire I thought had consumed him long ago. His lips peeled back in a smile too wide, exposing teeth that clicked like knives. "You didn't kill me," he whispered, though his voice echoed in every corner of the cathedral. "You became me." The words hit harder than flame, because I knew he was the double I had burned, the one I thought was gone. Yet here he was, claiming space not only in the shadows but in me. I stumbled back, shaking my head violently. "No, you're not real. You're just residue." But he followed, grin widening, each step pulling the others with him. The ring closed tighter, their whispers layered into screams now, shouting betrayal, coward, imposter. My own name twisted until it was no longer a name but a curse. My knees buckled as their weight pressed down, and for a heartbeat, I thought I would dissolve into them, just another draft swallowed by the void. Pixel hissed, the sound sharp and final. His eyes projected a final sequence. Me, in this very moment, collapsing to my knees, swallowed by shadows. The vision was not memory, but prophecy. My throat constricted, my chest crushed. I wanted to scream, but breath would not come. The shadows clamped down, pulling at me until my vision blurred. My arms felt weightless. My own outline threatened to separate from my body. And then the original spoke, his voice cleaving the storm like lightning. "Enough." The shadows froze mid-motion, their hands still clutching my arms but no longer dragging. They shivered like puppets awaiting strings. Slowly, reluctantly, they released me, slinking back toward the benches, though their whispers lingered like smoke. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, every breath coated with the metallic taste of blood. My limbs trembled, weak, but the silence that followed was worse than the screams. The original's gaze pierced through me, unreadable. "Do you see now?" he asked quietly, though his words carried like thunder. "This is not cruelty. This is clarity. You are not a survivor. You are an inheritor of failures, each one burned into your marrow, and they will never release you until you release what you carry for me." I shook my head, though it was weak, frantic, almost childlike. "If I give it to you, then what am I? Nothing?" My voice cracked on the last word, hollow in my own ears. For a moment, I thought he would answer, but instead he let the silence stretch until it suffocated. Then his eyes hardened, and he raised his hand again. The cathedral groaned. The grooves flared brighter, red spilling like molten veins across the floor. The shadows stirred, restless, their whispers eager to resume. Pixel's tail snapped against the stone, sparks flying. My pulse lurched, sensing the storm had not ended. It had only paused. The original's voice broke the silence, deep and final. "This was only the beginning. The trial has many stages, and you have only faced the shadows of what you left behind. Next, you will face the truth of what you were meant to become." The chamber shuddered violently, columns bending as though they might collapse. The floor split wider beneath me, black light pouring upward from the fissure, pulling me toward its depth. I clawed at the stone, but my grip crumbled like sand. The shadows roared approval, Pixel's eyes widened, recording every second, and the original simply watched, sovereign, waiting. And then I fell, swallowed by the dark fissure that yawned like a mouth beneath my feet. The fall ended in silence so bright it hurt. I landed on a surface that wasn't stone, wood, or even air. It was brilliant solidified, light so dense it bore my weight yet threatened to swallow me whole. My eyes burned, but shutting them didn't matter. The white bled through my eyelids, etching itself into my skull. The fissure of shadows was gone. In its place stretched a horizonless void, a cathedral stripped of walls, roof, and altar. There was only radiance, endless, suffocating. It should have felt like salvation. Instead, it felt like being pinned beneath an invisible blade. Every breath I dragged into my lungs scalded like fire. My own outline wavered in the glow. For one sickening instant, I couldn't tell if I still had a body or if I was only a smear of thought burning at the center of the light. And then his voice came, clean and resonant, cutting through brightness like steel through silk. Shadows accuse, but light judges. This is the second stage of your trial. Here you are not hidden. Here you are seen. The whiteness trembled in response. Gold filaments lanced upward from the floor, twitching like serpents before stiffening into spears. Their tips shimmered, always turning to face me no matter where I moved. Sweat prickled down my spine, though the air was so cold it froze in my chest. The judgment was alive, waiting for a single command. Pixel fell beside me, landing with a convulsion of limbs. His form quaked, fur splitting where metal cables writhed, as if the brilliance was flaying away his disguise. His golden eyes flickered with static, projecting fragments he could not contain. I saw myself in warped flashes, walking through the motel lobby, staring at the flickering neon, whispering to the notebook. None of these were memories I wanted. Pixel had been keeping them, feeding them to something, and now the light was forcing him to release them all at once. His hiss came broken, stuttering, almost mechanical. Exposed. I tried to speak, but the light weighed heavy on my tongue, muffling every word. Still, I forced them out like shards of glass. What do you want from me? The original appeared without entering. One moment there was only brilliance. The next, he was there, revealed as if he had always been inside the light, waiting. His body cast no shadow. His eyes burned the same merciless white, reflecting me not as I was now, but as I had been. Broken, begging, kneeling. Truth, he said. Not your version. The version you try to bury. Light makes denial impossible. You will stand before it, naked, or you will be erased. At his words, the golden spears stabbed downward, not into flesh but into memory. Each impact detonated an image across the chamber like stained glass shattering. The motel hallway with its buzzing sign. The girl in the white dress whispering my name. The mirror cracking under my fists. The double writhing in fire while I turned away. Each memory pulsed alive, replaying itself in brutal clarity. I tried to look away, but the brilliance pinned my head forward, burning my eyelids open. I wasn't allowed to blink. I wasn't allowed to forget. My chest heaved. I lived through this already. I survived it. The original's reply was sharper now, like the strike of a gavel. You did not survive. You carried. You dragged every failure with you like chains. And here, they bind you. The brilliance surged, and the visions multiplied. Dozens of me filled the white, each from different nights, different deaths. They were radiant, merciless, perfect in detail. They were not shadows now. They were undeniable records. A jury of light. Pixel writhed harder, tail lashing sparks into the luminous floor. His mouth opened against his will, and my own voice came out of him, fractured, echoing like a tape run too fast. You can't hide. You can't hide. You can't hide. The memories closed in. The girl's eyes went hollow. The burning double's grin spread until his teeth glowed like knives. They overlapped, twisted, merged into a grotesque tapestry of every face I'd tried to erase. The brilliance forced them against my skin. I felt their mouths screaming into mine, their hands clawing into my chest. My body convulsed. I was being rewritten by memory itself. And through it all, the original observed, sovereign, letting the light do his work. He did not need to move. He did not need to raise his hand. The light obeyed him as breath obeys lungs. When I collapsed to my knees, sobbing against the fire in my veins, he finally stepped closer, his palm extended, not to help, but to seal. This is your truth, a draft that calls itself whole, a page that mistakes itself for the book. You will let go of what you carry, or the light will strip you to nothing. The gold spears shifted, aligning with my heart, with my skull, with my throat. The radiance thickened into form, figures of light, human-shaped but faceless, stepping forward in synchrony. They carried my memories like weapons, each one raised to strike. Pixels screamed in static. My pulse stuttered against the roar of brilliance. My mind fractured under the weight of exposure. And then the original's voice thundered, final and inescapable. Your sentence begins now. The spears of gold struck, but before they could pierce, something inside me broke loose. I wasn't the one screaming. It was the memories. They surged upward, not as chains, but as fire. I staggered to my feet, body trembling, voice ripping through the light. You're not untouched. You're rewritten too. The words hit harder than any blade. For the first time, the original's face wavered. A ripple ran across his perfect mask, and beneath the glow, I saw a fracture, hairline and jagged, as if a different face struggled to claw its way through. His calm faltered. The chamber quaked. Pixels screeched, cables sparking, body jerking as though my words rewrote his code. His eyes glitched, golden irises flickering with static, then vomiting images into the air. Thousands of fractured frames, all broken, all wrong. My own hands dripping with blood. A motel hallway folding in on itself. The white-dressed girl stitched back together, only to collapse again. They spiraled like moths into flame, faster and faster, until even he couldn't contain them. The brilliance recoiled. Light warped into shards, convulsing, unsure if it was judgment or chaos. I felt the weight pressing down lift, only slightly, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to strike back. Memories poured out of me. Not the neat projections Pixel had stored, but raw, jagged bursts. The first time I read the rules, the burn of the mirror, the pounding at the motel door. They weren't accusations anymore. They were weapons. Each image snapped outward, slamming into Pixel's body. He shrieked, tail whipping, cables cracking open like veins. His golden eyes shattered into 1,000 miniature screens, each playing a memory on endless loop. The overload made him stumble, claws scraping deep furrows into the luminous floor. For the first time, he looked afraid. The original roared. His voice shook the chamber, the kind of sound that bent bone. Enough. But it wasn't enough. It was only beginning. The columns lining the chamber shuddered. The carved laws etched deep into their faces, laws I had obeyed, broken, suffered, splintered with deafening cracks. Dust rained down, but it wasn't dust. It was ash. Ash from every failed draft that had come before me, rising in clouds, spinning into a storm. Their whispers returned, but this time they didn't accuse me. They called to me. They joined me. The chamber became a hurricane of memory. Shards of rules, broken faces, voices of the left behind. They swirled, pressed, screamed, until the brilliance of judgment faltered under the pressure. Light fractured into prisms. The original stepped forward, face twisting, the fracture across his mask widening, his voice lashed like a whip. You are mine. A draft cannot revolt against the writer. But the voices howled louder, drowning him. Not yours, not anymore. Pixel collapsed to his knees, his body convulsed in spasms, golden eyes now flickering through thousands of faces per second. Every glitch, every error screamed across the chamber. He was unraveling, dissolving under the avalanche of memory. His claws scraped against the floor, but each scratch only produced more static, more failure. I felt power surge through me, terrifying, intoxicating. I was no longer carrying memory like chains. I was wielding it like a blade. Each fragment I'd feared, every shadow, every scream rose around me as soldiers. The chamber walls cracked, from the fractures seeped black smoke, bitter and cold. The storm of ash fed it, turned it into shapes, faces without bodies, arms without flesh, drafts reborn in fury. The original lifted both hands, white fire lashing out in waves, burning through rows of these ash specters. But for every one he destroyed, 3 more rose, pulled from the storm. His perfection was faltering, his command slipping, and then the floor itself split with a groan like the earth tearing. From the crack surged a new pillar, taller than the rest, forged not of stone but of blood-soaked light. On its surface words burned, searing themselves into existence as though the chamber itself could no longer contain silence. Rule. Last, the rewritten may rewrite, the letters bled, dripping crimson onto the glowing floor. The other columns screamed as their etchings twisted, some collapsing, some consumed in fire. The original froze, eyes wide, the fracture across his face splitting further, as though the rule itself had cut him. Pixel convulsed, circuits shrieking, static blasting in a storm so loud it deafened the chamber, and I stood at the center, breath ragged, ash storm swirling at my back, staring at the final law written in blood. A law that was mine. The chamber was no longer still. It writhed like something alive, bending against the weight of a law it had never meant to bear. Columns cracked with sharp splintering echoes, light bled into the air like liquid glass, and the brilliance that once crushed me now trembled like it feared its own reflection. At the center, the pillar pulsed, every vein glowing crimson with the words I could not escape. The rewritten may rewrite. They weren't just etched into stone, they were written into me. The original staggered forward, his perfect mask splitting wider, fractures running like fire across his chest. His eyes burned with fury, but behind the flame I saw fear. He raised a pixel convulsed nearby, cables whipping as though alive, golden eyes flickering with static until they collapsed into black. For one frozen instant, I thought he was gone, destroyed in the storm. But then, slowly, his head lowered. He bent one knee, not to me, not even to the original, but to the pillar itself, as if acknowledging a power greater than either of us. My stomach twisted. This was no longer judgment. This was something older, something hungrier. The storm of ash thickened, and the voices of the failed drafts no longer whispered. They howled. They pressed against my skin, cold and electric, crying out to be written again. Each memory that had haunted me now surged as raw material, begging me to carve, to shape, to remake everything. They tempted me with freedom, with vengeance, with control. For the first time, I understood. The law didn't just give me power. It demanded I use it. The original struck. His arm split into blades of light, lashing through the storm, tearing ash specters apart until nothing but smoke remained. His fractured body glowed too brightly to look at, but the cracks betrayed him, spilling static with each movement. He roared over the chaos, voice shaking the chamber. "You are nothing. You are erased words, half sentences. I am the writer. You are my drafts." I felt my own voice rise to meet his, ragged but stronger than before. "If I'm rewritten, then I can rewrite you." My words struck harder than his light. The ash surged in agreement, spinning into a hurricane that pressed him back. Memories bled out of me, no longer fragments, but floods. The motel's neon light stuttering in the rain, the mirror's fog spelling my name, the girl at the door whispering rules I didn't want to hear, the reflection that wasn't mine. They all poured out, layering over the chamber, bending it into shapes that twisted and collapsed as if reality itself couldn't decide which version to obey. Pixel staggered upright, his body half flesh, half wire. His voice split into 2 tones, one mechanical, one beast, speaking together in discordant harmony. Rule last, confirmed. Integration, imminent. His words were not prophecy. They were a sentence. The pillar groaned, bleeding brighter, until the words were no longer bound to stone, but spread like cracks across the ceiling itself. The entire chamber throbbed with the law. The rewritten may rewrite. The original faltered, falling to one knee, his fractures spilling light as though his body were unspooling into raw energy. "It will unmake you," he hissed. "It destroys what it grants. You cannot hold it." But the voices pressed harder. "Rewrite, rewrite, rewrite." Their chant thundered in my skull until I thought I would split open. And then I did. Words carved themselves into my skin, glowing like wounds. My veins burned with sentences I didn't understand. Each heartbeat felt like a page being torn and rewritten. I was not one Michael anymore. I was thousands, layered and screaming, yet somehow still myself. The original rose with one last scream, his arms shattering into 1,000 spears of light, all aimed at me. But before they struck, the floor split apart with a groan like the breaking of the world. From the rupture, a new structure forced its way up, taller and darker than the rest, a door. It wasn't made of wood or stone or steel. It was made of nothingness so absolute it consumed the glow around it. Above the frame, a number burned in crimson fire. 0. Door 0. Silence fell like a blade. Even the ash storm stopped. The original froze mid-attack. Pixel lowered his head. Further, trembling in reverence. Every whisper died. Every light dimmed. The pull wasn't force. It was inevitability. All the nights, all the rules, all the erasures had led here. The door waited, and I felt every version of me lean toward it. Then it opened. Not like a hinge, not like a gate, but like a wound splitting open across the skin of reality. And from within, a hand reached out, pale, long-fingered, slick with blood that hissed against the air. The fingers curled, beckoning. My breath locked. Horror sank deep. The hand was mine, not the one I carried now, but another, older, rewritten, waiting, demanding. The pillar shuddered. The law blazed once more. Rule last. The rewritten may rewrite. The original screamed. Pixel bowed. The ash storm held its breath, and I felt the hand seize mine and pull me into the dark.